Hello beloveds, welcome to my channel. I have just made it to California, all the way from northern British Columbia. I just drove pretty much the last week to get here, and I'm just relaxing in California by my friend's pool, feeling so blessed to be here, enjoying the California sun every day since I've been here. And for a first video, since I will be in California for a couple months, I wanted to do a quick Q&A. I haven't done one in a while, so I asked some of you to send in your questions to me on Instagram. I'll also be posting a video next week of my road trip down, all the way down the Oregon coast. It was so incredible, so beautiful, so check in next week for that as well. So I will just get right into the questions. Number 1. How much did you save before embarking on your travels when you were younger? So I think I've made a video about this story, but basically I went overseas with no money. I went with like $100 in my bank account. The reason why I started traveling wasn't because it wasn't for leisure. I was traveling because I was in a very, very difficult position, and really it was a leap I had to take. It was a big risk, but I was doing whatever I could to get out of my position that I was in. I was in a very abusive relationship that I kept going back to, and I was fearful for my life, so I really had to sit with it and decide to stay in a life that was, you know, not going anywhere good, and it wasn't serving my highest purpose here. It wasn't serving me or anyone in my life, or take the risk of going somewhere completely unknown with almost no money. I had a job lined up. I don't want to say begged, but I wrote a lot of companies overseas and said, this is my situation. I don't have much money. I didn't have much work experience. And I was honest with them. I told them my situation and that I would work and I wouldn't disappoint them. And I found a company that lent me the money for my plane ticket to China, and I went with about $100. So I didn't have much saved, but I did have a job lined up, and I worked really hard to express my gratitude for them helping me. And I really put a lot of effort into making relationships and connections. This was in Asia, I was in China, and I made more connections, and then I got hired in other places, and basically that's how it started. If you want to go travel for fun, obviously you need to have money saved, but this was a move for me. I didn't want to go back to Canada, and I didn't go back for at least a few years until I knew I was strong enough to go back to where I was from without going into my old habits. How did you start with yoga, and when did you begin to feel the benefits? So I'm from Canada, and in the West there's obviously a lot of physical based yoga, so it's very asana based, and that's what I started with. So I used to do fitness competitions when I was like 18, very physical based. I was going to the gym like multiple hours a day, and I went into hot yoga as a way to switch up my routine. So at that point, it was really only physical. And as I mentioned, I was healing from abusive relationships, and I just kept feeling a pull towards yoga. Even though I didn't know any other benefits of it other than physical, there was just something inside of me pulling me to this practice. So I got a yoga mat by myself, and I don't even think I watched YouTube videos or anything. I just remembered some of the poses, and it was mostly like, I think I was making up a lot of things, or I saw some pictures and just made my own practice out of it. And then it healed me emotionally. Definitely, it was what showed me my power when I was healing from, very dark places, and a place where I felt powerless and I felt like a victim and helpless. And yoga showed me my inner power and allowed me to exude it into my life. And then this is why I became a teacher with yoga. I started teaching at women's shelters because I was in a women's shelter myself. So I went and started sharing my story and taught the yoga that had helped me, that naturally came to me. And then of course I started traveling around Asia and really discovering the history of yoga. And then I started studying more internal aspects of the path of yoga. So meditation, and I started practicing kundalini, and of course Tantra as, you know, a philosophy of life. So, I mean, yoga is such a big topic, and there's so many different paths you can take. So I like to see my path in yoga as going from physical to the emotional to spiritual. So really, this has healed me on every level. So I recommend it to seriously everyone. I can honestly say that yoga has saved my life. How do you deal with being alone and not sleeping around? Being fully honest, when I was younger, I would share myself with people for the wrong reasons, if you want to call it that. I would have polite sex. I've talked about this before. It's something that's common. It's when you connect with someone and you think they're nice, and even though you really don't 100% feel right about it, you feel like you almost owe it to them. And this was something that I really had to learn, that this power and my sexuality was my own, because I didn't have this concept growing up. Like, obviously on the media we see our sexual idols are giving it up pretty easily, and it's something that like I felt I was supposed to do as a woman. So I had to learn that on my own, and eventually I also realized that sleeping with people having sex is obviously fun and it feels good at the time, but afterwards, if you're not going to establish or continue anything on a deeper level with this person that you have just shared yourself, your body with, and you've shared energies with, you've shared intimacy with, even if you're still closed off, there are all these aspects and all these layers to it. And if nothing is going to develop between you, it doesn't feel good. And I don't believe that we can just sleep around with people and there's no emotional connection, because we're wired as humans to release these hormones and to release these feel good, you know, everything within us chemically. We're constructed to fall in love, to connect with people. And as women too, you know, people will call a lot of women more needy ones, and this is because in our brains we have sex to get pregnant and to have a family. So we want to know that this person's going to stick around, and it will bring up certain insecurities within us if we can't talk openly with this person. So I feel that trying to have casual sex, maybe it works for some people. I just, in my own personal experience and biologically, I don't feel that I don't feel like it's healthy for us. So knowing this, and with any addiction or any bad habits, and not just bad, but overdoing it. So this could be sex with multiple partners, or overeating is what I struggled with when I was a teenager, or over drinking too much alcohol. So anything that you're doing in excess like this, or anything that's making you feel good momentarily and then making you feel worse afterwards, I just meditate on how I'll feel afterwards, and then it's not worth it to me. I also smoked cigarettes when I was like 16. And not for long, maybe like a month or two, but when I was starting to feel I was getting an addiction, I just meditated every time on how I would feel after, and I would feel worse than I already did, because I started smoking because I was very stressed out at the time. So it just made sense not to add to my stress. Okay, next one. What do you think about money? I'm pretty sure I have a video on this as well, but I think there's a big misconception in the spiritual community that money is a bad thing, and I just don't agree with that, because of course it comes with a stigma, and it's all how you approach anything. So your intention behind it and how you view it, how you perceive money. If you're identifying with the amount of money in your bank account, then that's probably a problem, because that can be washed away one day, and then where's your identity? You know, identifying with anything that isn't eternal, which is our souls, then that becomes a problem, because it can bring us suffering. So we are meant to be abundant as humans. You know, we're not meant to play small. I don't believe that. So I think we can be abundant on all levels, and that's how we're supposed to fully experience this life the best that we can. I want to be successful on all levels, and I don't think that you have to choose to let go of anything worldly life. That is kind of the opposite of Tantra. Tantra is embracing everything and, you know, letting go of the shame that's attached to all of these things, and You know, we can still be married and have a spiritual practice. We can still save for a nice car and have that for ourselves and still be a spiritual practitioner. People are making all these funny ideas of what it means to be a spiritual person, but who really gets to decide these things? So I think that what makes you happy and what makes you abundant and fulfilled is probably what's right for you. But when you are identifying or attaching to any materials or money, then that's when it becomes a problem, and that's when you'll probably be unhappy. The majority of people who, like I did it when I was younger, I chased materials and money, and when I came into them at a young age, I was the most unhappy I'd ever been because I based my happiness on these things. So once I finally got there and I reached my goals, I was surprised to find out, oh, I'm actually really miserable because I've dedicated my whole life to these things that just aren't going to fulfill me the way that other things would, such as sitting with myself, loving myself, and, you know, creating valuable relationships around me, etc. There's many things. So really with anything, it depends on your intent behind it. What conspiracy theories do you believe? I don't know many conspiracy theories, but there is one, and maybe I'll get some messages about this if I'm going to share it with you, but I don't believe that anyone has landed on the moon. So that is my opinion, and I feel pretty strongly about it. But I'm here in America, and Americans, not everyone, but many Americans that I know, strongly believe that this happened, so I just simply don't, and I doubt I'll be convinced otherwise in this lifetime. How did you fund travels before Instagram? Well, I don't really actually make much money from Instagram. I use it as a platform to express myself creatively and to get my message out. And it seems to be working well. I communicate with a lot of people there, and I love connecting with everyone. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I'm not promoting many products. If I do, which has been next to none, it's something that I really believe in. So I don't make very much money from Instagram. I make a small amount from YouTube. Again, it's mostly just to get my message out there. Eventually, I might push things that would make me more money off of these platforms, but right now it's not really my intent behind it. So, but I'm sure if I wanted to take really professional pictures while I'm traveling, like I'm slowly learning photography and I love editing, it's like fun for me, then maybe I'll end up making money, but right now it's just not really what I'm focused on. What's the best quality a man can have? So obviously there's a lot, but if I just had to sum up one thing, I think someone else asked this on my last Q&A or something similar, and I just said willingness. So a willingness to continue to grow by himself individually and in a relationship. So I think once you lose that willingness, it becomes complacent, and I like to continuously be growing in my life. I'm always trying to grow on every level. You know, I read every day. I'm doing something physical every day. I have financial goals, and I need someone who's on the same level with me. Otherwise, I feel like I'm getting dragged down, or I get bored. I need to be always, working towards something, and in the relationship as well. So a willingness to keep growing together and to go deeper on a deeper level and to share more intimacy. It's basically just a willingness to keep growing and not sit around and, not do much. So obviously there's a lot of other things like honesty and loyalty and, all these things that I've actually personally, honestly, have found it difficult to find in a man. And these are important things to me, so hopefully one day I will meet someone who values them in the same way that I do. Are you ever worried about your future because of the life you're living? So my lifestyle has always been unconventional. My parents are pretty unconventional. I just do what makes me happy, and it's not the norm. I don't really worry about it because I know I know that I'm living and fulfilling my purpose here, and ever since I've known that for a few years now, I don't worry a lot about the future. Sometimes when I go back home and I'm around, people that I grew up with who are settled down and married and have children, of course there's going to be little doubts in my mind where, oh, you know, should I be doing this as well? Because to find a partner with the lifestyle that I have is definitely very difficult unless I find someone who has a similar lifestyle to me, which isn't very common. So obviously it's hard because I sometimes feel like I'm sacrificing certain things, but I think we're always feeling that way. Like my friends who are settled down and have a beautiful family, they're very fulfilled, but then they'll still say to me, oh, I wish I was doing what you were doing. And then sometimes I'll have those moments where I wish, you know, maybe I should have followed that path. Maybe I should have just stayed there and got married, and, you know, but I know that's not for me. When I sit with myself and I listen to my heart, that's not what it's asking for. It's to be out in the world and to share my message and to help others. And to me, that's bigger than having a family life. But to others, you know, they were born with a need to have a family. I never really had that. I don't worry too much, I guess. I do hope that one day I can kind of find a foundation and stop wondering as much as I do, but yeah, I'm not there yet. So I just try to remain open to whatever the universe has in store for me, and by surrendering, we are letting go a lot of the worrying about the future. So surrendering to the universe, knowing that it has a great plan for us, a greater plan than we can often imagine for ourselves. What's something you are passionate about that you haven't fully explored yet? I would say music. I'm from a very musical family, mostly guitars and singing, and I always wanted to play the guitar, but traveling, it was just too difficult to carry around with me all the time. When I'm living out of my suitcase full time, I already have so much stuff with me, so I've never really got to dive into that the way that I would like to. I've always wanted to learn how to sing and take singing lessons. And earlier this year, I just got into DJing, but now that I'm traveling again, my DJ equipment's back home, so I don't really get to go further into that for a while. So that's something I definitely want to explore more in the future. What are you looking forward to in California? So I am here for a little bit to spend time with friends, and I'm creating a bunch of stuff. I have some really exciting projects coming up, and just have a quiet space to be in the sun, because I was in Canada for a few months and it was just too cold there for me. I tried to do it, but it just wasn't working. Yeah, so just relaxing. And I also have a couple retreats coming up that I'm sure many of you probably know about. I will mention right now, for those viewing in real time, that my goddess retreat is currently full, and I'm so grateful for that. And I have another one with Vishuddha Das, formerly known as Koi Fresco. We have one together in October 9th to 16th, and I will link that below. So if you're interested, click that link. It's called the Divine Alignment Retreat. So definitely check that out if you're interested in joining us in India. So with that being said, I'm going to close out this video now. Thank you so much for joining in, and for everyone who sent in your questions. I always love answering questions and getting to know you guys better and sharing more about myself so you can know more about me. And if you have any more questions, just comment below. I'll do my best to get back to them. Many, many blessings, and see you all again next week.